This is your macroeconomics video on GDP consumption. One of the four categories of GDP is consumption, and this is the largest part of the U.S. GDP category, or the largest part of the U.S. economy. There are a couple of tricky issues of things that go into consumption and other things that are not included. So, for example, just remember that this is spending by households or individuals. So if they are the end user and the product was not used and it was made in the US, then it would go into the consumption category. There's some special issues when it comes to housing. If you rent your house or you rent your apartment, you are basically paying the landlord to borrow the land or borrow that particular space for a period of time. So you're paying your landlord for a service they're providing you. So rent payments every single month you pay them would be counted towards the consumption category of GDP. But if you purchase a house and you own the house, your mortgage payments do not count towards consumption. Remember, when you buy a house, if you can't afford to buy the house in cash, you go to the bank and the bank buys the house for you, and then you pay the bank back over time. Now, the bank is going to charge you interest, so you have to pay back the principal amount you borrowed plus interest. The interest portion of your monthly mortgage payment would be counted towards consumption, because that's the amount you're paying the bank for the services they're providing you. But the principal amount that is part of your mortgage payment would not be counted. The only time the actual purchase price of a house would be counted is if it is the very first time that house is produced and bought by the very first user of the house. Now, most people buy used houses. Remember, nothing used counts towards GDP because we only want to count the production of the house when it was first made. Now, if you buy a used house, but over time you decide to fix it up, you are then adding value. So anything that is value added to that home would count towards GDP consumption. If you purchase new floors, or you pay a contractor to do work on your house, or you paint that house, you hire a painter, you're paying those people for services, or you yourself are going to purchase those items at a store and put them into your house. So those specific things that you purchase would be counted towards consumption, but we would not count the housing price if it was a used house, and then also the upgrades to it. So value added is basically the sales price minus the intermediate goods. In this particular set of videos, we're going to come across a lot of charts and graphs. So here's your first one. On your guided notes, I want you to type underneath this graph and tell me, how do you read this graph? Some of them might be easier or more difficult than others. Remember to look at the title and then both of the axes. Tell me if you can give me kind of the main theme of the data and then pick something out that's more specific. Pause the video if you need more time. So here it says this is average household consumer spending. So consumers in these three cities from 2006 to 2014. One of the things you can see here is that households in San Francisco tend to spend more than households in Houston or Cleveland. You could also say something like consumers in Houston tend to spend more than people in Cleveland. You can also say that in Houston, spending has gone up. If you were asked to make some type of analysis of why this is, you could say that spending is higher in San Francisco. That could also be that their incomes are higher in San Francisco. It could also be that the prices people pay in San Francisco are higher than that of Houston or Cleveland.